Welcome to Ulua. You live, you work, you art.
Hello everyone, this is Carol from Ulua, and you see me in makeup and everything because I have just ended up recording a conversation with Paradise Kiss. She's a burlesque performer and also a friend. She was my teacher at the time, and so I decided to wear makeup for the occasion because it was special, and at the same time I didn't want to let it go to waste. So I continue with this episode that I'm recording for this week today. And I want to talk about that, just taking in the opportunity to do so, because I've been thinking a lot about this too for some time. Actually, every time I perform, it's like you will see in the interview, even though it's in Spanish, you can put the auto translation that YouTube has into your preferred language. And I've been thinking that we have, and we talk about this in the episode, about being a person, for example, at the office or at work, which is different or from your profession, and also being a dancer and a performer and several other things, and how this world of us is making us to separate from each other. It's like we cannot fully be as a performer in the workplace. And even though if we are competent in each one of the activities that we do, apparently those words are totally away one from another. And I remember, for example, saying I was a dancer at some works or with some colleagues, and even at the end I had to explain what kind of dance I was doing. At the time I was, for example, belly dancing or doing, sometimes I did also traditional dances, but people have like a certain idea and prejudices and all kind of thoughts in their mind which are not exactly the ones that you have as a performer. And I find that curious because you may have in a different way, for example, you may have, I don't know, a hobby, or you may be a sport person, and nobody will think badly, let's put it like this way, of you in your work context because you are a professional. And for example, you may be a professional and being at an office is saying at the same time, oh, I also like, for example, tennis, or I also do basketball in my spare time, and that would be considered a good thing to do. But if you say I'm a dancer or I'm a belly dancer, as we talked also with my friend Arda Ghazali, that was the first conversation we had at the section Guess Who, you will be looked kind of suspiciously sometimes at best. Some other times you might be considered, I don't know, like a lower status in your office. I've seen those kind of things, or people saying mean things to you, or making up their own ideas on what is that about that you do outside your shop. So I think this is really important for us to talk about. Also, this happens, for example, if you say, I don't know, I work at this office, but I'm from a certain religion, so people will look like you are different. And this could happen in several ways, right? So I think that we are too this what makes us do is that we tend up to be sometimes more private about what you do in your personal life. You just close up to your colleagues, to your coworkers, or even friends at job, because you are afraid of being, I don't know, that people gossip about you or say things that they aren't really true. Instead of asking you face to face. They just prefer to go up saying things sometimes. And it's because we are ignorant of what the other people is doing. Maybe if there's a dancer, some people have in their mind the idea that a dancer is, I don't know, a classical ballerina, but others have like they are, I don't know, working in a cabaret, or that by working in a cabaret they are bad people, that they are, I don't know, maybe immoral even. Instead of, as I said again, instead of asking what the other people is that they do, right? And at first, I mean, until recent years, when I was at certain works and that kind of thing, I never said I was a dancer, only to very few people when we got more intimate, in the sense that we got to know each other better. For example, when we traveled around due to work, maybe we discussed these kind of things. And because I knew the kind of people that I was with at the time, and we get to know each other really well, because when you travel for work, you get to know the other people well. And I could see that when you have the time for them to know you professionally, then it's different, that you work well and that you are a competent person at your work and that kind of thing. Then you can introduce like your hobbies or the things that you do to them, because you are already respected as a professional. But when they just know you from daily work, just at the office, they may not really understand that you can be competent at your work and also competent at other activities, sport or whatever it is. So I think that this happens, right? There's no way out of it, I think. This happens at work, this happens also in our daily lives. And what I've come out from this, I have taken out from this, is that we make ourselves an identity, we make ourselves, we label ourselves. So if I'm at an office, I have certain role and also certain label that I put myself, and other people put me also other labels. Or if you work, for example, I'm talking about work because it's the area where these other components or other ways of behaving or other things that you do can impact in your work, in the sense that you may not get a promotion because they think that you are something else in their heads. So these kind of flavors are put on you, whether you like it or not, whether you know about them or not. And they might be damaging or not. It depends on the situation, it depends on the place you are working, the people you're working with, how much do you, or how well do you know them, and vice versa, how well do they know you. But I think, yeah, it's an interesting thing to talk about. And so we can talk about the labels or the things we do. And I found out about some terms that can be useful to understand that. For example, there's a term sorry, there's a term going around that it was coined by two people, but I only remember the name of one, which is Hans Mahler, something like that. And it actually comes from the German, I don't know exactly the name in Sherman, but it's an only concept that in Sherman means like a special profile, that kind of thing. And they ended up calling the name of the book Profilicity. And they coined this based on two concepts from another book that another person had written, which are authenticity and sincerity. And they argue that authenticity and sincerity have become obsolete, we can say, because when we want to be authentic, we should be say also in which context is that this happens. And the same becomes for sincerity, because if you want to be sincere, but up to what point or according to what situation? So those are two words that can be manipulated somehow. And the idea is that there's no real true identity that you can attach to. That is what they ultimately argue, right? But of course, I think that's a Western perspective that could be also related somehow to Eastern perspective. You know, it's not black or white, but we have to do the contrast so you can see the difference. And so this Profilicity is about that, is we make ourselves an identity, but the thing is that we make, for example, an identity or a profile for a certain activity that we do. And we also talked with Paradise about this. Maybe if I'm a dancer, I will have a profile just to show what I'm doing as a dancer. And maybe I will have a professional profile just to show people what do I do as in my profession, or what have been my achievements and the things I've accomplished by being a professional. And if I also have another thing going on, then I will make another profile for having that and that and that. And actually, the conversation that I have just had with Paradise was interesting, because she said she saw this as a good thing, that you can have from that perspective. I think it's a good thing too, because if you have everything mixed up, she said, many people told me, I don't know what you really do, because you have many things mixed. You have, for example, when you go out for dinner and also have pictures from your shows and that kind of thing. It was all mixed up. So she decided to do two profiles, one just for her personal things, we could say, even though she's showing everyone if they want to see it. But on the other side, she only has professional photographs about the shows and announcements and that kind of thing in another profile. So that sounds great. A matter for thinking. And yeah, I think that's a good idea, and I think that has sense in it. It makes sense. But on the other hand, I was thinking that we are a full person. For example, I also talked to other artists. Arda Ghazali, my friend, she was the first one I had a conversation with in this Guess Who section, and she says she cannot reconciliate her being a psychologist and also being a dancer, because some people don't like it. Maybe she's judged for being one thing instead of another, and some people will care, some others won't. And I remember I also had the same thing when I started working. And though my artistic activities, I could say, because I'm also a textile artist and many things, I think couldn't be really mixed up with work. So I had to separate them and It's like I was wearing a hat in one as a professional. And for example, I never use this mask. We could say this makeup. I never go to the office in makeup, only maybe a little shadow in the eyes, and that's it. And lipstick, never, ever at work. And on the other hand, this is, for example, you see me fully, as we say in Spanish, pintada como una puerta, painted like a door, because I have too much makeup on my face. Actually, I started doing this only for shows, or for the stage. And so I had really two separate worlds going on. And I don't know how this will come up, because I have almost never said. I remember the first time I said to a colleague that I was a dancer. It was in an interview with Ranko, actually, and I told him that I was an artist also, in public. I mean, during an interview, because almost nobody knew that, and I felt like kind of awkward, because in general, what I've seen from my office or professional life is that artists are considered like freaks, crazy people, weird ones. So it was kind of interesting to be able to say that out loud. I'm a dancer, I'm a performer, and I'm also textile artist, and I'm also, I don't know, many things I do at home. I also clean my house and do many things. So I cook, and nobody has a problem with that. But apparently, with being an artist, it's something. Unless you're a painter, for example, if you're a painter, it's like high status. And well, I don't know. So coming back to Profilicity, this idea of us having too many profiles in our lives, even though we say we want to be authentic, apparently we're not, because we are some kind of authentic in our profession and some kind of authentic in our art, but they are two different things. And so the argument that they say is that actually there is no real self, or it's not a true identity. But I think that we do have authentic selves, or selves could be, but in different contexts, in different situations. And I think that is valid, even though it could sound contradictory. I think it's valid because, for example, we could be our authentic selves with our parents, but we do not behave the same way we act with a partner, for example, or with a coworker or with a colleague. So even though we are authentic, we are just one self, at the same time we behave differently. So maybe we could do a double click on that concept and say, yeah, we are different in different situations, and that's also part of ourselves. It's like this wearing the hat that I was talking about, and also sometimes some people say wearing a mask. And for example, if I had to dance, I don't know, something I used to do, I don't right now dance, but for example, Calvelia, which is a traditional dance from the north of India, and it's a gypsy dance. I would wear the full costume to represent the girls dancing there. And so they have specific steps, and they have specific makeup and costumes and clothes they wear. And this is my true self interpreting people from India. But I will be completely different, in a completely different look. And at the same time, if I, for example, go out to the supermarket and I want to buy things, I won't be, maybe you like to go to be makeup to wear makeup all the time, but I don't. I normally am, like you regularly see me in these episodes, without makeup at all. So it's still me. I'm still the same person with different contexts, different situations going on. So I think, even though it may seem some kind of contradiction, it's part of the same thing, the same self. For example, I remember when I was studying NLP coaching with my first teacher from Cordova, he made us do he suggested and he gave us an exercise to do, and it was he called it the planters. He only said 10 planters of the ego or of the self, we could say. And I had never thought about that. It was many years ago. I had never thought about that, about having different behaviors or different selves according to the situation. Again, if you are with your parents, if you are with your friends, if you are with a relative or a coworker, that kind of thing. So he called them planters. It's like you are cultivating a certain aspect, or cultivating your plant, yourself, in this particular situation, but then you go to another place and you have other behaviors, other action, other beliefs with those different people, maybe. So it's like, again, wearing these masks, or depending on who and where and whom you are with, you act differently, right? I think that is kind of interesting. So I don't think there's no true self as, or true identity, as this Profilicity thing says, but I do think more of that we are different. So maybe being authentic doesn't, and I personally think this, that you can only be authentic in the moment, because you also change beliefs, you change actions, habits, thoughts, many different things in your life change over time. So you can only be authentic in the moment. So if you say that I'm authentic right now, that's it. You don't have to dwell too much on the terms. But at the same time, I think it's really interesting because it gives you, it's like a mind witch, as I was saying. It's a food for thought, for your own thoughts, to see if you are maybe identifying with things too much. And because this also has happened to me, having only one profile, we could say, or only one hat, only one makeup to wear, and you want to, in name of authenticity and sincerity, you just want to wear this same thing all the time. It might not be right, because again, if you are with certain people, your behavior might be okay, and as long as you don't compromise your values, wherever they may be, if you don't want to, of course. I think you can have, if you only are super attached to your profile, to your identity, you will suffer, because this is what, at least from the Eastern perspective, right? And we could say also that, if you think a little bit about that, we could also, as Westerners, think that if we attach too much to a certain things, a certain behavior, if you become too rigid, we will suffer for not being able to do things according our ways. or according to the things we need to do in order to keep our profile intact, right? Our ideals, the things we aspire to. And of course, I understand, because this is super Western thing to do, aspire to something, as we talked before in the episode called Ikigai, flow and shed, because we tend to attach ourselves to this image that we are. For example, if I wear makeup all day like this, maybe I do this only on stage, and somehow I think it fuels the activity on stage, and it's right for that occasion. But if I all the time wear this, maybe I could be too attached to this look, for example, and maybe, and sorry, my Colombian and Venezuelan friends, because I'm about to say this. I know not all the girls in Colombia and Venezuela, but what I've seen is that they, in general, they tend to wear makeup all the time. And a friend told me, I won't name names, a friend told me he once lived in Colombia. He had a relative of his that, for example, she when she woke up in the morning, he was once having breakfast, and she woke up and she wasn't with the makeup on. She was just with her normal face, we could say, and he had never seen her with her face, because she was always made up. And she was like, oh, sorry. No, she didn't want everybody to see her face, because she was supposed to be in that makeup. That is like, she wasn't herself if she hadn't that profile, we could say, that look. She was too attached to her daily look with the makeup on. And again, it doesn't have to be for all girls in those places, but I've heard from girls there that they say that without their makeup, they are no one, almost. I think, for example, in this case, makeup is also a tool. It's a tool in my case for me when I have to go dancing on stage, or when I have to perform, or on special occasions. For example, I went to a wedding recently. I didn't wear this much makeup on my face because it was a more light social occasion and I was not the one on stage. So I was just a guest. But this is me. But I'm also me without makeup on, for example, without, I don't know, this glittery thing that I'm wearing. And I'm also me when I get up in the morning and I completely, my hair is totally messed up and everything. And so I think this attachment to things, this attachment of how we see ourselves, this identity that we have formed for ourselves, is what makes us suffer, is if we don't have it every day or when we want it, right? Instead of saying, okay, I'm me, whether I do have beautiful clothes or not, whether I have makeup on or not, or whether I don't know, maybe I'm in pain right now and I can't walk, for example, was my case and I was still me. So yeah, I think it's really interesting to delve on these things. And this is about only the mental image that we have, that you have about yourself, right? And I also heard from the Hindus that they said, I think it was Shankara, I don't remember exactly the name of the person that said this from Hinduism. They called ignorance to this identification we have with ourselves, right? With our appearance, our external appearance. And however, he said that no real knowledge came from inside, right? Because we identify too much with what the Hindus call Jiva, with J, not the God, because that's the personality, that's the identity, we could say. So we really feel attached to our looks. And maybe calling it ignorant could sound a little bit harsh, but I think that this is what makes us suffer, because when I'm getting older, for example, and my face is not the same anymore, and my makeup starts to or for example, if it rains and my makeup starts to melt completely, what would I do if I'm too attached to that identity, right? I'm not just talking about makeup, but it could be so many things in your life. It could be, for example, I don't know, attachment to certain thing that you do, to a certain trait that you have. You could say, for example, I'm proud of, and that becomes your identity, that proud thing that you want to get out in the world, and you see yourself as certain thing, or you sometimes there are people, for example, I was listening to another podcast the other day, and there was a guy that he used to be that he actually lost weight, and he said, I still feel that I'm a fat person, and so he's like attached to that identity of being an obese person. Sorry if I said that word, maybe it's not allowed, I don't know. So we make up an identity, and I was really afraid, because talking about me again, why not? I was afraid that I would become like, my pain is me, right? I was really afraid about that when I was in pain, because I didn't want to have that identity taken away, even though it was a time that I was in pain and all that, but that's not me. That's not who I am. I'm not my pain. I'm not my work. I'm not my gender. I'm not my role. I'm not fill in the blanks. Because instead of being connected to this Shiva, as I was talking about from the perspective of Hinduism, we should be connected to what we really are, which is beyond our identity. And I do a little parenthesis here, because I was talking to my partner today, and I said, wow, apparently I'm talking too much about spirituality, even though I don't consider myself a spiritual person or that kind of thing. But I don't know why I relate to this specific point. No, the Shiva is the personality. I close parenthesis now. About talking that this Shiva is the personality, our identity, what we think that we are as a person, and the difference to what we really are. And from the Hindu's perspective, is I really don't know what we really are. But from the Hindu's perspective, it's the Atman. That's from what I can gather so far, is like this pure consciousness, they say, right? So yeah, again, I'm going spiritual, but never mind. Just disregard this if you don't like this thing. And from a funny perspective, what I could imagine of this being these masks that we wear, and I will actually talk about masks in maybe other time, because I love masks. And actually, well, I cannot stop saying things that I am passionate about, like the theater, for example. And wearing makeup is a mask. And the smallest mask that you can wear are the clown nose, right? It's the smallest, even though if it's painted. So anyway, that's about masks. But I remember about the faceless, sorry, the many-faced god in Game of Thrones, right? Where they made available in their temple all those faces they could wear to just to change or change their identity, these worshippers of this god. And I don't know if we have like thousands of faces, but we have many. Maybe if you want to do this exercise that my teacher from early years suggested, that at least think about 10 situations that you act differently and you behave differently, you have this mask on for the opportunity. Just to reflect on the things that you do, because maybe you think you're fully authentic again and sincere, but it's actually that you have different stages or different places where you, like I said, practice or put in practice this authenticity. Even if it's still you act differently in different places. And also trying to understand which is the identity you feel more attached to. Maybe, I don't know, it comes to mind, you're a lawyer. And you say, I'm a lawyer and I'm the best lawyer and I know all about, I don't know anything about lawyers, but I don't know, certain things that you say, okay, this is the things that I need to have for being this amazing lawyer that I am. And you are super attached to that. But on the other hand, maybe you're also a dad, for example. And maybe one identity has sometimes taken over the other, or sometimes there's only one identity, and maybe you as a father are not as good as you could be. I'm just saying, right? You get the idea. So I think, yes, we have like these different hats, if you want to call them, different masks, different identities that you use as you need them, but sometimes you don't fully understand them. So this could be a good exercise for you to understand what's your main identity, we could say. And I know we have spent so much time at work, so that might be one of our main identities. I know it used to be for me. But I now think that I have so many. Yeah, I have many, and if I am acting in a particular role in a play, for example, or during an improvisation, I have so many different roles and identity that I take just borrow from for the moment, or I just make them for the moment. And it's also great to know that you have the capacity to do so, even if you're not doing that because of circumstances of life. It's good to know that you have the capacity to just borrow certain traits from maybe one person or the other, and maybe makes a mixture that helps you or serves you in the moment you are in. So yeah, and it reminds me that we were talking about imposter syndrome with Belen the other day. Remember that we are doing another podcast in Spanish, which is called Dos Minas Hablando de Negocios. It's mainly focused on business, but we also sometimes talk about society, some other terms, things that go on and that also affect business. And we were talking about the imposter syndrome, and I said that I used to hate, for example, that was the word I used. I used to really hate people that were like super confident, and maybe they didn't really know what they were talking about, but they were just confident, talking so I don't know if beautifully is but fluently and super confident, and they seem to really have the knowledge to do so, but you actually realize that they didn't fully understand what they were talking about, that they knew just little and they made a big world out of it. And maybe you can, instead of hating them, you can take those traits and say, okay, this person is, I don't know, confident. Maybe I won't have the trait that's talking nonsense, we could say, that I will leave him to have it, but I will borrow, for example, this confidence, and I will try to start talking with more confidence and that kind of thing. So that's the place where I say you could borrow from different people, different traits, different characteristics of their personalities, right? So yeah, I think that's it, and I hope these ideas help you understand yourself better. That's the main idea of this. And don't, this is my opinion anyways, don't focus too much on, is this right that it's prophelicity, it's not prophelicity. I don't really mind. I don't totally agree with that perspective. But I think what's important here is, instead of focusing on the specific things that other people are saying, again, don't get too attached to that kind of concepts, I would say, words. Just think about your identity. What are the things you are attached to? What are the things you would like to see different in your life? Or if you have several identities, how are you trying to manage them? Are you doing that successfully or not? Do they really help you? Maybe you have some obsolete masks that you don't really need them right now, but you just use them because it's your habit. For example, those are the things that I try to think about myself, and that may help you. Maybe not. I don't know. So please comment if you have had this inner discussion with yourself. It's all about making yourself better, making your mind palace bigger, or at least more decorated or comfortable for you. And yeah, that. So subscribe, comment, and like if you liked it. And it's probably that you won't see me made up this much in the channel, because again, I don't think I'm the center of this. This is just occasional, and I don't know, unless this could be helpful for you to pay attention to yourself, but I don't think how that could be relevant. And again, yes, remember, this is only a mask, and so yeah, always remember the many-faced God from Game of Thrones, that you never know. Thank you for being up to here, and have a good night. Bye bye.
Stay tuned for Ulua's next episode.